some of these stories?
No, I have not expressed any of these stories outside the super intimate space of my home.
My story is kind of weird, and it occurred when I was 13. The stories I hear are, my friends are like, oh, I trusted him, but I did not instinctively trust this person, and it still happened, and that's the weirdest thing. And I almost have no memory of it. I'm pretty sure I was drugged. I'm pretty sure I lost my virginity that night, although I had no memory of it. It actually took me a couple of days to wake up, and my mom thought I was sick.
But in the case, there was small instances in the professional world where I would have a meeting and walk away and my ass would be grabbed. They'll say things like, we have a blacklist and we'll put you on it and no one will ever work with you. And it's so endless. And we're not even talking about the accusation level here. We're just talking about basic level, no, I don't want to go on a date with you. Oh, blacklist. It's crazy. Is what happens a majority of the time. Is it's just someone in your life that you have a basis of trust with, and that trust is broken in a really intense way that you didn't expect. For some people, that's friends, and for some people, even more shockingly, it's someone that you are more than friends with, or even in a relationship with.
So I was about 6, so I think he would have been about 14 years old, so definitely older, old enough that he should have known. And I just kept asking him, I was like, can you just let me go to sleep? And finally he said, I'll let you go to sleep if you do these things for me.
And I said, well, what is this? Like, I'm obviously having cramps, and I actually never looked into it. I just didn't want to know the answer to that. I thought I was better off not knowing. I was just sitting in my room one night and I realized that what I was experiencing was not menstrual cramps. It was totally different. Now I wish I would have at least told my stepdad. I didn't think that they would believe me. They had their own problems, so I thought that this problem was like if I could just sit there and maybe not say anything or kind of pretend that it didn't happen, maybe I could just go on with my life like it didn't happen.
We danced with some young man I didn't know, as one does, and he came back to the table and sat down. We were chatting, probably flirting a little bit, when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he started groping me under the table. And horrified, I shoved his hand away, and I don't remember exactly what I responded. I'm sure it was something very placating and trying to make light of the situation, because this is how I had learned to handle these kinds of situations. And an ugly mask came over his face, and he leaned in and he hissed at me, "Oh, I know your kind. You're a little cock tease, aren't you?"
All of a sudden, there's a man in front of me, and he grabbed my breasts and then started pushing me towards off the sidewalk towards, there were a lot of trees and everything, and I kind of had an idea of what was happening, and so I kicked him, and I said, "Get the hell away from me." Our detective wanted me to pick the man who committed sexual harassment towards me, and I couldn't find the man in the lineup, and I was afraid to pick someone who maybe it kind of looked like them, but maybe it wasn't them, and I didn't want to pick the wrong person. And he told me that if I didn't, that he wouldn't believe me, and that I could have charges against me for that. And so he kind of gave me an ultimatum of either we continue pushing through, but if we find out you're lying, you're in a lot of trouble, or you could stop now. Something bad happened to me, but it could have been a lot worse. And there are women out there where the actual, deed actually was done to them, what would have happened in the bushes, I assume. And then, if they go through with a rape kit or something, oftentimes no one even looks at them.
Memories started coming up when I was in my early 30s. They were too real and too specific to be random. So I thought, that I was raped that night. That's the only thing that I could come to.
It's a humiliating process, and this whole process was humiliating for me because then my parents knew that someone touched me, and I'm embarrassed by it and humiliated by it. In the big scheme of things, sure, I'm sure that there are a lot more other things going on, but it sure didn't make you feel good, and it made you feel like they were calling you a liar when you were telling the truth.
And I went to the bathroom, and as I came back, I was wending my way through a lot of small tables very closely jam-packed together. And I got like 2/3 of the way across the restaurant when I realized not a single man in here has even glanced at me. And at first it was almost like there was a shock that I was no longer even worthy, is that the word? I don't even know what the word is, of a second glance. And then I had a huge wash of relief come over me, because finally I could pass through life without being harassed everywhere I went. So the only thing that slowed this barrage down was getting older and heavier. My story is not the tragedy here. The tragedy here is that my story is completely unremarkable. It is average. It is a story of every woman, every day. Don't tell me that's okay.